230, 250, or 280 SL. Which one should I buy? A lot of people contact me looking for 280 SLs, and in fact 280 SLs are such a common request in the shop that I try to keep a running list of cars available because you never know who's going to be asking for one. And the phenomenon of the 280 SL is similar to the phenomenon of the 560 SL. The perceived value always seems to be in the later version because economic values seem to support it. But what if you want a Pagoda that you're just going to drive and enjoy and use, and your long-term plans don't necessarily include cashing in on the car at some point? Is it better just to keep your eyes open for a 280, or is the driving experience going to be just as good with a 230 SL or a 250 SL? Pierre Hedary will now elaborate. The 230 SL was introduced in 1963. And it continued in production until late 1966, meaning that some cars were actually built as 67 models. These cars benefited from having a smaller engine that was more free revving, making them a little bit more like an Alfa Romeo and a little bit less like a 350 SL. They also tended to be more sparsely optioned, with everything from lighter seats to an uncomplicated and unfussy drum brake rear end, as well as more attractive interior appointments according to some people, such as a better steering wheel or some better cues in the dashboard, or that fascinating upright spare tire used on the early 230 SLs made into the end of 1965. These cars are well known for being an inexpensive entry-level Pagoda, where it is possible to buy a decent car in the $25,000 to $35,000 bracket. Now, I'm sure that some of you are rolling your eyes and saying, oh my gosh, why would I want to spend $35,000 on a 230 SL? That's not cheap at all. Well, if you look at the values of similar 280 SLs, which can be $20,000 or $30,000 more, it might suddenly seem like a great idea. Now, the next model that Mercedes produced was an interim one-year-only model known as the 250 SL. And the 250 SL had more in common with the 280 than the 230 did. In fact, the 250 SL was basically the perfect blend, in my opinion, of the 230 and 280. It had rear disc brakes, yet European models had a wonderful 3.70 rear axle ratio, or 3.75 to 1 rear axle ratio instead of the 4.08 unit that American cars did. In fact, if you have a Euro market 230 SL, it also had the 3.75 ratio, which is a great final drive. It's very fuel efficient and it matches the power of the engine extremely well. The 250 went through two iterations. There was a version that cosmetically looked more like the 230 with the early steering wheel, earlier seats, earlier hubcaps, and earlier steering column, as well as earlier seat belts and the same type of carpeting that was used in the 230. And then later on there was a version that resembled the 280 more, with the safety steering column, the later steering wheel, changes to the seats and the carpeting, and some other little clues, as well as some versions that even used full wheel covers on them. Although it is possible on any 250 SL with its original wheels to put the two-piece wheel covers back on. These 250 SLs are priced closer to what 230s are most of the time, and they offer really good usability. Now, there are a couple of things that you should look for in a 230 or a 250. First off, if you're looking at a European market car, which is the most attractive proposition, rust is always really common, and for some reason the 230s and 250s seem to have it more than the 280s, maybe because they were used with more reckless abandon, but that is something you should always be looking out for, especially underneath the car. Second of all, if you want a car with air conditioning, or you want a car that's really going to retain its value well, or if you want the car that is absolutely the strongest performer, the 280 SL is still the car to have. The 280 engine can handle the AC system that the cars used, and if you want to do an axle conversion to a 327 unit to make a highway cruiser, you have to really have a 280 because the 327 ratio does not work very well in the 327 ratio does not work very well with the 250 SL, and it certainly doesn't work well with the 230 SL. These smaller engines are more free revving. So I would definitely recommend that. But if you're shopping and you're frustrated with 280 prices, or you feel that 280s are really expensive, and they don't really seem to offer much more than a 230 or 250, maybe these are some cars you should look at. They present a great alternative, and they're just as reliable and functional. Now, there's one more catch. The engine on a 230, because it was a more exotic, more tightly wound engine or more highly tuned engine, can be more expensive to rebuild, and they often show up with more wear and tear than 280 engines. So keep that in mind too. However, the price difference of rebuilding an engine on a 230 versus the price of rebuilding one on a 280 is not so significant it would steer me in the other direction. The other thing I would watch out for, and this is my last footnote, are cars that have been constantly either over-restored and then aggressively marketed, or cars that have been passed from auction to auction to auction. Sometimes you can get a great deal on these cars, like a 230 sold at Hershey for $32,000 recently. That was a solid car, but for the most part, the cars that do best are the ones that come from private ownership, rather than the over-restored cars that are being marketed by dealers or auction houses. You don't get as much of a discount with those cars, although like I mentioned, there are some notable exceptions. So if you're looking for one of these cars, private ownership is best, and it's best to stay away from a car that had a blingy restoration. Instead, go for a more authentic, real, unmolested, unmodified 230 or 250 SL. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. In the meantime, if you're a Patreon supporter, we really appreciate you contributing to our channel and doing whatever you can to make it work. And we're going to try to keep bringing you great content on these beautiful Mercedes classics. Enjoy driving your Mercedes Benz, and thank you for watching.